and I want to introduce Tim a little. Tim is my English teacher, and he is business teacher. It is because he founded a travel company. His company name is Guidee, and so interesting. So today we have conversation about his company and his startup story. Tim, could you explain about yourself a little?
Sure, of course. So, my name is Tim Nigma, and I'm an architect by training. So I went to school for architecture, and then I kind of like followed more of a traditional kind of corporate career path for a few years, and then I decided to quit my job and start a company because my true passion I discovered was entrepreneurship. It was not really architecture as much as I loved it. So I started a company called Fava Life, and I did that for a few years, and then I started traveling. I've done a lot of world travel, been to around 59 countries, and that's when I had the idea for Guidee. So I came back, so I started kind of like working on it, and then came back here to kind of try to get it off the ground.
Oh, cool, cool.
So in terms of, you want to know what Guidee does?
Yes.
Yeah, so essentially it's like an immersive self-guided tour app. So it's kind of similar to having a tour guide, but on your phone, like in your pocket. So essentially we're targeting travelers. We have basically covered, we have 5 cities so far, and it's like the most popular tourist attractions or the must-see tourist attractions in those cities. And right now our goal is to go after, even though it's a consumer-facing product, we're actually going, taking the B2B and B2B2C business model. Cool. So we're targeting cruise lines because the app aligns with it's like a pressing problem for them. Okay. The people who take cruise lines, but then they don't want to join excursions when the cruise line goes to shore. They want to tour on their own, and they only have 6 to 8 hours. So this is where Guidee comes in handy. So we're working with cruise lines and also destinations. So like tourism boards of tourist destinations to essentially have like strategic partnerships where we can create. We do both the technology and the content, which kind of like puts us in a unique position to kind of collaborate with them.
Yeah, thank you for telling me about your service, Guidee, and it's very interesting. And then when I came here, San Francisco, 2 months ago, I was helped by Guidee's service. It is because I didn't know anything in San Francisco, but Guidee helped the people who came foreign countries for the first time. They can help. They were helped by Guidee. So let's try to download and use Guidee if you go travel some countries. Yeah. But Tim, I want to ask you a question. Why did you decide to be an entrepreneur?
Entrepreneur?
Yes.
Yes. So like sometimes you kind of follow a path. Like I was in college. I was just a kid, not really knowing. Like I liked architecture. I liked because it has a combination of it's like science and art at the same time. So there's engineering part to it, but there's also art and design. And I felt attracted to that. But I think my dream has always been to kind of create my own thing, and the creation process where you start with an idea and you turn it into a product or a service that kind of like helps improve someone, people's lives and solve problems. So that was like my true passion. And then when I kind of tried the corporate thing, I just learned that it's not for me really. As much as I liked architecture and the design and the engineering pieces to it, it didn't feel like this is really what I wanted to do, like working for like a large corporation and climbing the corporate ladder. So so that's kind of like how I got into it. Does that answer your question?
Okay, thank you for telling me. But my story, to make a company is a very architectural process, I think. For the first time, you try to build a company, and you have to find some partner, and you have to find customers.
Exactly,
there
yeah.
are many things, many processes.
I mean, there are a lot of similarities. So, for example, in architecture, you start with an idea, and then that idea gets developed, and then eventually becomes a product, and then you're kind of like managing different consultants that kind of on the engineering part, and then you're managing clients, and so there are a lot of similarities in terms of how the process goes. between architecture and entrepreneurship.
Yes.
So there's definitely some lessons that you could apply, but nothing prepares you really for the real world, because once you start a
Yes.
you start a company, it's a journey, and then there
Yes, it's
are
a
a lot of
journey.
ups and downs, and then
Yes.
of course you get.
But how did you learn how to start your business and how to make a company? For the
So
first-
like I guess some people
Yes.
have a more like well thought out or well researched approach, and then you kind of plan everything ahead of
Yes.
time before they finally take the plunge. The plunge. In my case, it was actually more of it was more like of a gut feeling, and I kind of like went for it, and I learned as I went. So it's kind of started with an idea and ended up not really not really making sense in terms of like its potential, and you kind of pivot, and then you adjust, and
Yes,
then you
I
talk
know.
to customers, and you learn,
Yes,
and then
yes.
so it was kind of like I took the long path, like the windy path, where you kind of make mistakes and you learn, and then
I think so
you
too.
move forward.
When I started my company in Japan 10 years ago, I don't know how to go to how to run company. Not at all. I did because I graduated from University of Tokyo in Japan. I specialized in economy, but
Mhm.
I didn't know how to run company. So after I started my company, it was so terrible. I failed and failed and failed and failed. I think most of the entrepreneurs don't understand how to run company for the first time.
Yeah, for sure. You make
Yes.
you make a lot of mistakes, and you
Yes.
fail, and
Yes, but-
failure
Yeah,
kind of like
failure.
helps you
Yes.
eventually succeed.
But I kept my habit. I asked some senior entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs and executives how to fix this problem, and I listen. After that, I do as fast as possible.
Yeah.
And I fix the problem, and next fix and fix and fix and fix this process. So I learned trying fixing some problems. So for the first time, I didn't know. How do you think about it? You understand how to run company for the first time, or
No, it was more like you. It was like kind of like trial and error. And actually, my first startup ended up like not succeeding.
Okay.
But learned through it, and it was a process. You kind of like you try something and it doesn't work, and then you make inevitable mistakes, and you kind of you make your fair share.
Okay.
But it was kind of like, I think what could hold you back is, I think the biggest thing in my opinion is like fear of failure. So long as you're willing to fail, and in my case, I resisted that for a long time, and didn't try everything that I could possibly do to avoid failure. And then, but then you kind of like, once it happens, once you kind of fail, you're like, oh, okay, it wasn't the end of the world. I mean, yeah, it was obviously not good, but you learn from it, and then you realize, hey, this is gonna really test your passion, because even though my first startup did not succeed, I still had the same passion, and I'm working on my second startup. And so long as you follow your passion, and if failing led you to learn about, okay, this is still your passion, or is that something that caused you to change direction?
Why do you keep your passion? Well, first time you don't succeed, but again you try. It's a very important thing. But why can you keep this process? Some people fail. After that, they quit this process, I think. But you keep this process. Why can you keep?
I think two things. One is first, I have a lot of passion about creating things and solving problems, and having going through that process.
Okay.
And then the second part was that, like, my first startup, I've done a lot of things wrong, and then we ended up like running at a runway, as they say. So we were like moving ahead full steam, and then until we fell off a cliff. And that's being metaphorically the runway. Ran out of cash, which is something that I think kills a lot of startups. But however, there was like a silver lining, which is there was a line of product that we introduced towards the end that was a major hit, and it kind of like met product market fit. But unfortunately, we couldn't keep going because we ran out of cash. So I'm actually, I just decided to bring that back, because we know we have all the pieces in place. So I am starting to work on that, and we'll bring that back. So so it was that silver lining, kind of, you're like, okay, I've done a lot of things wrong, but at the end there was something that had a lot of potential, and that we can work with. And then my second startup, which is Guidee, it kind of like marries the passion that I have for entrepreneurship with my other passion, which is travel. So it's like it's so much fun to work on it, and solving a problem first for myself as a traveler that I ran into, and then realizing that hey, a lot of people have this same problem. So it's exciting. It's like something that you
Yes.
it kind of like marries both my passions.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm
Yeah, I think so too. When I decided my business field in HR field 10 years ago, when I started my company, I love HR and human resource field, and I love it. And I have one idea. If we start HR field business, we don't spend a lot of money. It is because we don't have some asset, real asset, not necessary to try to make business. If we start some sushi restaurant in San Francisco, for example, it's very difficult. We have to collect money for the first time, but we try to human resource field. It's not necessary. Only data is important. So I decided this field, and I love HR, and it was a good decision for me, I think. And it's a very important thing. You love this field or you want to solve this problem as one user, it's a very important thing. For the first time, our business like Upwork, and we focused on Japanese market, and we provided services to software engineers who live in Japan, and they want to work remotely, but our services started 2016, so it's so earlier than COVID-19 started. So they cannot find good remote work job at the time. So we fixed the problem. And I started this hiring process. It is because software engineer people want to work remotely, understand, and companies cannot hire good talented software engineer people. So we provided these services and to solve hiring problem. It was so fun. Customers, client, company client happy, and software engineer happy, and we can get profit happy. So win-win-win. This process was so fantastic, and I want to try to make like this process again. Yeah.
Yeah, this is kind of like similar, like conceptually to what we're doing. So like Guidee, the product is it's a travel tech. We're a travel tech startup, and the product serves, which is like the immersive self-guided tours that are offered on the app. They serve the end user, the traveler, but also it solves a problem, for example, for the cruise lines themselves or the destinations, where it kind of helps them enhance or improve the experience of their users, which is for cruise line it's the cruise line guests. So if they if there's a portion of their travelers, which is like 20 to 40%, they want to tour independently, they don't want to take or go on an excursion, then if the cruise line helps them make the most out of their time at each port with such app, then they're more satisfied, they have a better experience, then they become more loyal, and then they come back. So it's kind of like also like a win-win for our business partners and also like the end user or the traveler.
It's a very important thing to provide some valuable experience, and if you can provide good experience and good valuable process, your company is growing up, I think. Yeah, thank you for telling me. And Tim, do you have some co-founder to start Guidee?
Yes. So my co-founder, who is the CTO at Guidee, I kind of spent a couple of years in China. So I was like traveling, and then I ended up in China. And one of the things I was doing on the side was teaching business English in China. And that's when I met my co-founder. He was actually my student.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Like me?
That's right.
Now.
So he also started worked on another startup as a co-founder. So it was like for both of us, it was like our second time, so we could apply the lessons that we learned. And so that's my co-founder. So like two people.
Why did you decide to start your business with them?
Like my first startup, I was solo, like a solo founder.
Yes.
And it was a very, very long and tenuous and tough journey because like with all the ups and downs of a startup.
How many years did you run first company?
4 years.
4 years. Okay.
So when you're doing everything as a solo founder, it makes the journey tougher.
Okay.
First because we had an advisory board, we had like people on the team and everything, but just being a solo founder, it's still like
you have to fix all problems by yourself.
Yeah, and also so it's like having someone that can also carry the load, but also bounce ideas off of each other and like kind of help direct the company.
Okay.
It's something that has a lot of value. So for Guidee, I decided I'm not going to do it solo. I need to work with a co-founder, and so Marco is the CTO. And as a matter of fact, we might add a third co-founder down the road that would be doing some of like the CMO / COO kind of responsibilities. So we're considering that as well.
Okay. Oh, thank you for telling me. And are you a co-founder living in China now?
Yes.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so we're fully remote. So in terms of like for Guidee, there are two parts to it. One part is the development, and then the other part is the content itself.
Okay.
Where the actual content of the tours, the stuff that goes into the app, the product. So the content part is done here in the States, and then the development is done. Our developers are in China. So that kind of helps us, gives us a lot of flexibility. The cost is lower as well for development.
It's a good idea, but you have probably huge time difference, like Japan and India.
Yeah, but for me, it's actually an advantage. I think of it as an advantage because like we kind of like send the mock-ups or kind of like the work at night, and then by the next morning it's done. It's kind of like because of the time difference. It's day over there.
And while you teaching English, you were co-founder writing code. So
we were doing we were both like we're bootstrapped, so we're both doing like some part-time stuff and then working on Guidee. So I was kind of like doing the product and he was doing the code. That's kind of like how we